Are you ready?
Virgil, you're learning fast. And all you people out there are going to learn the same lesson that Virgil here has learned. That money can and does buy you anything or anybody. Like I said, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Everybody's got a price. Everybody's gonna pay.
What a man. What a man. Teaching us that everybody's got a price, eh? Hello and welcome to another edition of Irish Wrestle Talk. Now, throughout the years, we've had the pleasure of seeing some amazing heel characters who've truly managed to get under our skin and antagonise us. And for someone to be able to do this, it takes an incredible amount of talent. And to be able to take a gimmick or an idea and run with it, to get the most from it and draw incredible heat is amazing. And one of the best at doing this was Ted DiBiase and his character, the $1 Million Man. And DiBiase, of course, taught a lot of us that everyone has a price. And he loved to showcase this as often as he could with some memorable promos and vignettes. He was a second generation wrestler and his adopted dad was Iron Mike DiBiase. And Ted was trained by the Funks as his dad had passed away in the ring when he was only 15 years old. So Ted got a very good grounding in pro wrestling across multiple territories as a referee and a wrestler. But it was in WWF in the 80s and 90s that he really made his mark and found his calling as the iconic $1 Million Man. He was the self-proclaimed $1 Million champion, using his custom-made diamond-encrusted belt and dressed in an array of dollar-decorated suits. And DiBiase took every opportunity to berate and humiliate his opponents. And his personal bodyguard, poor Virgil, was on the receiving end of this for a long time. And he used to throw money around like confetti. And in those days, it was a different time, of course. He was the character 24/7. So even at airports, bars, or wherever the job would take him, he was still the $1 Million Man, and his actions and his behaviour only helped solidify the character. And one notable fan, unknown to us at the time of course, was Rob Van Dam, who was invited into the ring at one stage to perform a humiliating act. And what about the time he offered a young kid a big payday if he could bounce a basketball 15 or so times without interference before kicking the ball away before the child could complete the task? Shocking stuff. He just knew how to draw incredible heat from the crowd and push our buttons and manipulate the crowd to whatever way he wanted. Of course, in later years, we found out from various sources and interviews that all of this was indeed staged and the people involved were in on it and looked after behind the scenes. But at the time, how were we to know this? And we all bought into it, to pardon the pun, and loved to hate the guy. He was using real money provided by Vince McMahon to get the character over at every opportunity, and the dedication and talent of DiBiase really helped in cementing this character as one of the greatest heels in living memory. DiBiase had some of the best rivalries and feuds we've ever seen, with other stars like Macho Man, Hulk Hogan and Jake the Snake, and a brief one with his bodyguard Virgil, which didn't amount to what it could have been, mainly due to the limitations of Virgil. But in all this time, it seems like a travesty that he didn't hold the WWF title, but he came very close. Now, some claim this had something to do with the Honky Tonk Man and some arrangement Vince made with him at one stage, which impacted Ted, but there was a lot of backstage politics and stuff happening on a regular basis. But even without the belt, DiBiase had his own title, of course, and he was still well over as a heel with the fans, and doing what was asked of him day in, day out, week out, drawing the incredible heat and the hatred wherever he went. So one could say he didn't need the belt anyway to be relevant and popular. And according to Bruce Pritchard, the inspiration for the $1 Million Man gimmick actually came from what he once witnessed on a flight between Vince McMahon and another passenger that was smoking a cigarette. Vince asked the passenger to stub out the cigarette, and after back and forth negotiations, the guy eventually agreed to put it out, but for a price. And with Vince peeling off the bills to pay the guy, the concept was formed. So the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, could in a way be seen as the true embodiment of Vince McMahon. But as with any gimmick, it's only as good as the individual that gets it, and whether they're able to run with it or not, or make it a success, is really down to them. And Ted DiBiase was the man for this, as he was a tremendous wrestler and an amazing ring psychologist, as well as everything else. And some of the notable feuds he had throughout his time with WWF include Hercules Hernandez, where Ted bought him from the Heenan family, leading to their feud. And this wasn't one of the strongest in terms of finish to this angle. And then we had a feud with the Big Boss Man. And after that, Dusty Rhodes, where DiBiase bought Rhodes' manager Sapphire. And then there was all kinds of hijinks ensuing from this, as well as the common man taking on the rich, obnoxious millionaire. And the feud with Jake the Snake Roberts, which had Jake stealing the $1 Million Championship. And their WrestleMania 6 encounter is actually one of DiBiase's favourite matches. And then against Macho Man Randy Savage, when this feud began during the WrestleMania 4 tournament for the WWF Championship, which came about after Ted DiBiase stole, or actually bought, the WWF Championship. And this led to the belt getting vacated and ending up in a tournament to decide the winner. Of course, Macho Man went on to win this with the help of Hulk Hogan. And then we had the involvement of DiBiase with all the Hulk Hogan elements through various times, including hiring Andre the Giant to carry out his orders for him and so on. But of course, DiBiase has to take some credit for our first introduction to the Phenom, The Undertaker, as the Dead Man made his debut in WWF at the 1990 Survivor Series pay-per-view as part of DiBiase's team as his mystery partner, and a segment that goes down in history where The Undertaker emerged and started on his path of destruction. And going on a couple of years, Ted DiBiase formed a tag team with Mike Rotunda, better known as IRS or Erwin R. Shyster, and they were known as Money Inc. And they managed to win the tag team titles on a few occasions, feuding with such legendary opponents like the Legion of Doom, the Natural Disasters, and the Warrior and Savage, and of course Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake's team, and had some great matches with the Steiner brothers. And DiBiase ended up retiring in the early 90s due to injury, and he was involved in some commentary then for a spell, and between 94 and 96 he had his $1 Million Corporation, a faction which boasted an impressive lineup of talents. And he was also involved in the introduction of the Ringmaster, later to be known as Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the rest is history. So after a while, he transitioned to WCW, where he had some success and was repackaged as Trillionaire Ted, a little play on Ted Turner, and worked a bit with the NWO. And in later years, DiBiase worked in creative for the WWE and had some sporadic appearances here and there in various angles and promos. But in reality, DiBiase became a Christian minister, which is a far cry from the character he depicted most famously through the years. And his sons, Mike, Ted Jr. and Brett also followed in his footsteps and became pro wrestlers for a bit. And he's now, of course, a podcaster with Everybody's Got a Pod. And that's a really popular show where he details various aspects of his career, telling great stories from his time on the road and giving his opinions on modern day content. So even though the $1 Million Man hasn't been on our screens in WWE in years, it doesn't seem to be that far back for some reason. And I think it's because he was such an immense, talented, memorable character, and because some of the segments were ahead of their time in terms of content and delivery. And the charisma of DiBiase and his talent really shone through and made for some great TV and iconic stories that still stand up today. It's perhaps a gimmick that wouldn't have the impact if it were done today, but who knows? He certainly has to be right up there in the top list of all-time great heel characters. But what do you think? Make sure to let me know, guys. And thanks once again. I hope you've enjoyed this little look back at one of the greatest heels of all time. And as always, if you enjoy this content or wrestling in general, make sure to follow, like, subscribe, and until next time, take care and remember to keep grappling with greatness.